Let's make it obvious. Reality versus fantasy. This is the space shuttle and it's pure fantasy. Top speed supposedly 17,500 miles an hour. Top temperature 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Bear that in mind. Here's the SR-71. This is reality. Top speed 2,200 miles an hour. Top temperature 900 degrees Fahrenheit. 17,500 miles an hour. 2,200 miles an hour. Ridiculous, isn't it? 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. 900 degrees Fahrenheit. One is clearly reality and has been verified many times. The other is just pure fantasy. This is just a plane that comes into land. It's not any spacecraft coming from an orbit around a ball. Its design looks more like a Lego aeroplane than some badass spacecraft. And then when you compare it to reality, and of course the speeds and the temperatures, like I said, it looks like a Lego fucking aeroplane rather than some badass spacecraft. And like I say, it's just a prop, an aeroplane that comes in and lands. Now, whenever the space shuttle landed, it was always accompanied by jets, supposed chase planes, to help it land, because the guys in the space shuttles were wearing space suits. So the chase plane was helping the guys land. Or so that's the official explanation for the chase planes. And that would be fine if it wasn't for the U-2 spy plane, as we're about to see. Now, as we know, the pilots of the U-2 spy plane wear spacesuits reaching high altitude. And when they land, because they're wearing the spacesuits, same as the shuttle guys, they've got poor visibility. But they use a chase car, which of course, as you can see, is below the plane and has a brilliant view and can talk the pilot down easily because he has a better view because he's below it. Now, I would have potentially believed the official narrative regarding the chase plane and the space shuttle if it wasn't for the U-2 plane. The U-2 plane and the chase car being underneath and having the best view possible highlights the absurdity of the space shuttle having a chase plane. It should have had a chase car. It can have a chase car because then you hear the jet engines, because it's a plane that comes into land, a jet plane, not a space glider. So you've got the jet planes, chase planes coming in with the space shuttle, helping it to land, rather than the chase car, which of course makes far more sense being underneath the aircraft that's landing. But like I say, the space shuttle needs the planes to come in rather than the car, so you don't hear its engines come in. Like I say, it's a plane that flies in from an undisclosed location. They come in, turn the engine off just before they land, and they land. Their cover is of course the plane, the chase plane, but where they come unstuck is the U-2 plane, has the same hindrance, the space suit for the pilot, and he uses a chase car, which gives him better view. And if it was about that for the space shuttle, they use a chase car as well. They don't, they use an aeroplane because the space shuttle's an aeroplane and they need to cover the noise up with the chase plane. Sorry if that hurts, but it is what it is. You've been lied to.
So, despite the Apollo moon hoax, there are people who still believe that man is in space, and we have all sorts of space vehicles and satellites and space stations up there. It's time to have a look at the space shuttle. So let's take a look at a typical shuttle launch.
T-minus 17 seconds and count. 15, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, start, 2, 1, booster ignition, and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery, returning to the space station, paving the way for future missions beyond.
Now, I'd like to stop it there for a moment because I'd like to draw your attention to the shuttle's trajectory. Now, as a kid, I often wondered why it was that all rockets and space shuttle launches, they never ever went straight up. They always curved off to one side. Now, I remember being told at the time that it's because the Earth is spinning and the rocket is actually still going straight up, but from our point of view, we're just spinning away from it, so it looks curved. Well, you can't have it both ways. If that's the case, then when we jump into the air, we should land about 1 kilometre to the west. So you can't have it both ways. The quickest way into orbit would be straight up. Going horizontal would be the long way round. Let's continue.
Standing by for the throttle up call from Capcom Speed Pro.
Okay, at this point, the shuttle is horizontal. That is, it's not getting any higher, it's simply travelling horizontally along the ground. And as you'll see in a few seconds, when the booster rockets separate, they still fall to the ground under the influence of so-called gravity.
Discovery Houston, go and throttle up.
Go and throttle up. Throttle up.
Throttle up, throttle down, right commander, speed policy. Solid rocket booster separation confirmed. Guidance now converging. Discovery's onboard computers commanding the main engine nozzles to swivel, aiming the shuttle for its precise target in space for main engine cutoff.
You have a good forward leg now and okay, you sound good. Discovery Houston, negative return. Copy, negative return.
So ground-based video ends there. Not because the shuttle's too high, but because it's too far away downrange. As I said, it's travelling horizontally at this point. So what's missing is what they call MECO, main engine cutoff. That means the shuttle no longer has any power behind it whatsoever. But after MECO is the external tank separation. As you can see from this diagram, when the tank separates, it falls back to Earth. So what's stopping the space shuttle following the same exact trajectory? Between main engine cutoff and this ohms burn, the space shuttle should follow the exact same trajectory as the external tank. But it magically does not. And conveniently, there's no video cameras to show exactly what happens. The point here is that at external tank separation, both the shuttle and the external tank are subject to this so-called force of gravity. Neither the shuttle or the external tank are in space. And yet they want us to believe that there is an orbital manoeuvring system which is capable of blasting the shuttle from this point, which is still in the Earth's atmosphere, into orbit. Well, the clue is in the name of the thing. Orbital manoeuvring system, not orbital insertion system. Where's the fuel for this? There isn't an external tank anymore, so there isn't enough fuel to blast this shuttle into orbit, even from this height. And on the subject of height, where does space actually begin? In this shot, the space shuttle is supposedly in space, because the cargo bay doors are open. But you can see the features on the ground in great detail. In fact, you'd be hard-pressed to see such detail from a passenger jet at 35,000 feet. Look, you can see roads and rivers and individual fields. Anyway, once the shuttle's completed its mission, it's now a glider. So let's have a look at a video of a glider landing. Now let's take a look at NASA's glider landing. And pay particular attention to the sound of non-existent jet engines powering down after landing.
Down and locked. Main gear touchdown. Nose gear touchdown. Deploying of the drag chute delayed to assess the conditions of the crosswinds on the orbiter as it rolls out on the runway. 15 at the Kennedy Space Center, wrapping up a nearly 5.3 million mile mission. Endeavour returning the first educator mission specialist Barbara Morgan to Earth to begin the next step in her journey to inspire future generations to explore, learn, and build a better future.
Houston, Endeavour, wheel stop.
Roger, wheel stop, Endeavour. Congratulations.
Undoubtedly, the nice woman from NASA, employed to state the bleeding obvious, is there to distract you from the fact that it's a bloody jet plane, tarted up to look like a space shuttle. It's not a glider at all. You can clearly hear the jet engines powering down. When you look at the back of the space shuttle, you can see two odd-shaped pods. These are supposedly the orbital manoeuvring system. On the front of these pods are two odd-shaped holes. Why would a rocket engine need some kind of air intake? Wouldn't it be dangerous to put such air intakes on the back of a shuttle, which on takeoff is going over 10,000 miles an hour? Wouldn't they just rip right off? Very strange. No, these holes are precisely what you'd have if you wanted to hide an air intake to a jet engine. So here's a conspiracy theory. If I was on the receiving end of upwards of 200 billion of taxpayers' money, perhaps this is what I would do. Well, I'd spend a few million on some of what they call hero models. Space shuttle mock-ups that look the part, have lots of flashing lights and computer screens and stuff, but are not flyable. They'll end up collecting dust in museums anyway. Then I would have a few mock-ups that I would fly into space, but really would basically fly out of sight and ditch in the sea, getting destroyed in the process. Then I would spend a few million, perhaps even $1 billion, let's give the taxpayers their money's worth. Perhaps I'll spend $1 billion or so on developing a plane that looks like the space shuttle. There you go, job done. No refunds. So let's change the launch profile of the space shuttle for my new classified one. We have a remote controlled, full-size mock-up, basically nothing inside, just an empty shell. That's flown up on remote control, on essentially a big firework. Everything acts as normal, the booster rockets detach as normal, but when we get to the external tank separation, that doesn't actually happen. What actually happens is the tank and the shuttle fall back to Earth, where they ditch in the sea and get destroyed in the process. After the mission's complete, a space shuttle plane takes off from an undisclosed location and lands at an Air Force base in front of the TV cameras. Simple. Don't be ridiculous, Dave. You couldn't fake something like that. There'll be too many people involved, and the truth is bound to get out. Blam, 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 blam. The best example of space shuttle fakery is the Challenger disaster.
Just watch the shuttle here. Totally disappears at points in a very strange manner. So let's have a look.
Thrilling feeling feeling. I'd like to turn it over to Dave Walker and let him give you some of his impressions of his first flight.
Well, I was excited, obviously. They don't measure our heart rates anymore going uphill, but I'm sure mine was really thumping. On the other hand, the vehicle flew absolutely smoothly and exactly as...
Quick cut. That must have been quite some ride, Dave. But let's just go back here. Slow this silliness down. So I've slowed this right down. Obviously pay particular attention to the space shuttle. And of course the flames coming out the back of the boosters here, right? You can still see the flames. Shuttle goes behind a cloud here. Just coming up. And starts to disappear. Totally disappears, but we can still see the flames there. And as it comes out of the cloud, the space shuttle has gone to a different realm. Then reappears bizarrely in a cloud. Really strange, and then totally goes to another realm again. Fantasists, explain this toss to me, will ya? What's going on? Let's come back. I suspect this is a layering issue. Because it makes no sense to me. None. And I've even tried to put myself in the mind of a fantasist trying to defend a delusion. And I still can't justify this silliness. You can see the flame, but no rocket, no shuttle. Blue sky. It just reappears in a cloud. Weird. And once more. That's just weird. Really weird. Appreciate the link highlighting that to me, mate. Very strange stuff. Again, space is just full of silly thalias, awful bits of pantomime, hairspray fetishes, CGI, layering issues, circus-like performances, all apt up by naive and gullible individuals, which generally online means middle-aged men that play with toys. Very strange.
Isaac.
going to show you how silly the space shuttle program was. Going to use footage from the very first ever space shuttle mission, STS-1. We join the action as the space shuttle is supposedly doing 17,500 miles an hour around the globe Earth. They've just opened their cargo doors and they're about to do an inspection. So let's have a look.
Okay, we want to show you all here. We do have a few tiles missing off of both of them, off of the starboard pod, three tile and some smaller pieces, and off the port pod. Looks like I see one full square and looks like a few little triangular shapes that are missing, and we're trying to put that on TV right now. Roger, Grip, we can see that good.
So that's not good. As you can see, several of the tiles, the heat tiles, which protect the space shuttle against extreme temperatures during re-entry, several of those tiles are actually missing. Yeah, really not good and quite revealing. And this is where it starts to get sillier and sillier. I'm over at Google. How are the space shuttle tiles attached? The tiles were not mechanically fastened to the vehicle, but glued. Since the brittle tiles could not flex with the underlying vehicle skin, they were glued to Nomex felt strain isolation pads with room temperature vulcanizing silicon adhesive, which in turn glued to the orbiter's skin. So essentially that's a lot of fancy names to describe essentially these tiles were glued to the orbiter. Oh dear. So back with the original clip and an extra clip regarding the aluminium skin that lies underneath these ceramic tiles that protect the space shuttle.
Okay, we want to show you all here. We do have a few tiles missing off of both of them, off of the starboard pod, three tile and some smaller pieces, and off the port pod. Looks like I see one full square and looks like a few little triangular shapes that are missing, and we're trying to put that on TV right now. Roger, Grip, we can see that good.
The aluminum skin will melt at 320 degrees. The silicate tiles must insulate the vehicle from the tremendous heat.
So the aluminium skin that's underneath these tiles will melt when it's exposed to temperatures greater than 320 degrees. And that's a major problem when we're looking at this old school footage from STS-1. Because essentially, we've now got parts of the space shuttle that are exposed. They're weak links in the chain, if you like, where we've got the aluminium skin not protected by a heat tile. What makes it worse now, the temperatures during re-entry, NASA have told us it's around about 3,000 degrees, which would be terrible for this situation which we see on our screen right now. But they're ranging from anything from 3,000 degrees from NASA all the way up to 9,000 degrees from a NASA legend, a space shuttle legend, Gibson, who had this to say about temperatures regarding re-entry.
Start hitting the Earth's atmosphere because you'll start to see a little bit of a glow outside your window. It's white hot outside. It's just as bright as day. And the air outside is 9,000 degrees. Well, that's hotter than the surface of the sun.
Just think about it logically. If this thing was coming back in at 17,500 miles an hour, yeah? The moment it hit the Earth's atmosphere and started to feel resistance from the air, and of course friction, and of course high temperatures, the lack of aerodynamics here due to the missing tiles would cause serious problems. The glue would fail, the aluminium skin would melt underneath the tiles that are not even there. The hot air would get underneath these tiles here and rip them off, exposing more of the aluminium skin, and this aircraft would just disintegrate. That's at 3,000 degrees, yet alone the 9,000 Hoop was on about. Doesn't matter who's right, whether it's NASA or the NASA legend. Coming back in at 17,500 miles an hour, hit an atmosphere, these tiles would be ripped off the back, the temperatures would just melt the aluminium skin. This thing would have essentially just been burnt to pieces. For anyone claiming, oh, they fixed it before they returned, no. So I'm over at NASA STS-1, touchdown, landing the first space shuttle mission. We get an image here. I'm just going to nip into the image. When I zoom in, we can see the tiles haven't been replaced, which means this space shuttle didn't come back from space doing 17,500 miles an hour, hit a globe Earth atmosphere, encountered temperatures ranging from 3,000 to 9,000 degrees. No, didn't encounter any of that or do any of that, because it would have actually ripped up and burnt up and been absolutely obliterated upon re-entry. The aluminium skin that was under the tiles that had fallen away would have been exposed to ridiculous temperatures, and the spacecraft, due to a failure of aerodynamics and a failure of space heat protection, would have failed and been destroyed upon re-entry. But strangely enough, it had no problems landing, which means it didn't encounter the things they said it did. Just highlighting yet again the fraud that is this space shuttle program. They can't get their story straight. The reason they can't is because it's lies.
Russia developed a hypersonic missile with extraordinary speed. This missile I'm going to show you travels at 5 times the speed of sound, and it travels between Mach 5 to Mach 10. So I went into the calculator, Google calculator. So Mach 5 is 3,836 miles per hour. So let's just watch this. Okay, you saw that. If you blink, you cannot see this thing, going from here to here. Like, from the bottom of the screen to the top of the screen. It's gone already, right? Look at this. Okay, see that how fast this went, right? Now they tell us the space shuttle travels at 18,000 miles per hour. So basically, what's a triple? Triple the speed of this? About to 18,000. Yeah, about to triple the speed of this. But yet we see this mumbo jumbo that this thing is traveling like, it's just like it's barely moving off the surface of the Earth. It's just going like this, right? It should be doing this, but 3 times faster. Look at that, folks. Look at that. Even if it gets to, 3 miles above the Earth, it should be traveling like 3 times faster than this. But we don't see this, right? They don't show you this. They show you this little thing going like this across the screen, horizontally, right? Never going vertical like this, right? So there's more evidence that this is all BS, folks. It's all a show. It's all a show.
Extremely low frequencies. once happened